My whole life, I grew up on that lake. I fantasized about shooting a scene there. Now I have my chance. I'm standing in the middle of the bridge with Yuji Okamoto, and I point. I said, right over there. You see over there? That's where I grew up. Little did I know that when I rented Karate Kid 2, when I went outside and my dad had some windows and I'm 4 years old and I'm doing this and I karate chop those windows and slice my hand open and blood is everywhere. My dad's freaking out because I thought in Karate Kid 2, Daniel broke glass. I didn't know it was ice. Now, all these years later, I'm standing on a bridge with you, Yuji, who played Chosen. I can't help but think this is so cool.
Competition.
Welcome back to FURYCAST. Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and of course, smash the bell for notifications. On FURYCAST today, director, writer, producer, Mr. Derrick Wayne Johnson.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm glad you reached out.
Well, I'm glad that I found your films and your body of work. And it's also good to know that you're a fellow Texas guy. You know, we'll get into all that, and a fellow martial artist. But before I say too much about you, why don't you tell the good people out there who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, well, I'm Derrick Wayne Johnson.
Good name, by the way, Derrick. Good name.
Thank you, thank you. Well, it's funny. I added the Wayne, that's my full name, when I got into the movies. And what's funny is so many people say, "Oh, Dwayne Johnson." I'm like, no. That's that other guy. He's a good dude.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, so many people, but so sometimes I'm like, should I go by my full name? So yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I'm now a film professor as well, which is very new to me, and a martial artist. So I've been doing feature films and documentaries for a long time now. Been doing martial arts for almost 28 years. Next month it'll be 28 years, and yeah, just glad to be here. Glad you showed some interest in talking to me today.
We're glad to have you. And a lot of the guests I have on this, or at least try to get on this podcast, it's the intersection between filmmaking and martial arts. And you definitely check that box, but you also check the box of you actually beat me to the punch with a lot of things you have in your head. See, that's the thing about filmmaking. Everybody's like, I got an idea. It's not, filmmaking isn't about ideas. It's about putting in the units of hard work that gets you to the finish line of something, And I was always fascinated with a lot of the individuals that you ended up doing documentaries on. Can you just, before we get into your story and what got you there, could you please tell the people, give a shout out to some of your docs?
Sure. And there's a few of them behind me on the wall here. So I've done several documentaries, few of them being John G. Avildsen, King of the Underdogs, which is a documentary about John Avildsen, who directed Rocky and The Karate Kid and all these great movies that I know you and I grew up watching. And then I did Stallone, Frank That Is, which is about Frank Stallone, Sylvester's brother. And then I did 40 Years of Rocky. So you can see kind of a trend here. I got in the game in, a long time ago, but I didn't really get, I guess, my break until the John Avildsen doc. And what's cool about that is that got me doing 5 different documentaries with Sylvester Stallone. It just snowballed after that, or 5 different projects, I should say. But it all goes back to that one. And what's cool is I just saw your episode with Daryl Vidal, who I met through King of the Underdogs and interviewed him, and he was an associate producer on. So I've known him for about 10 years. He's a great guy, over 10 years. So it's led me to get to work with Stallone several times, Ralph Macchio, just all these people, like basically all of our childhood heroes I've gotten to know, befriend, work with. And it's just kind of mind blowing because I'm just this guy from East Texas who had a dream, but never really knew that, one day, Sylvester Stallone would be FaceTiming me saying, "Hey, I got a project for you." I'm like, what? And it kind of all comes down to getting my foot in the door with John Avildsen, who obviously has since passed. That's kind of, you know, what did it for me was that particular documentary. It just snowballed from there.
Did you ever think as a kid that the people that we idolized as kids would be back in the mainstream spotlight?
No, but here's a pretty cool little thing. Obviously Cobra Kai is the number one show in the world. I remember having lunch with John Avildsen, Marty Cove, and Billy Zabka, and they were talking about kind of an idea they had. Now, it's not the Cobra Kai idea, that's a different group that came up with that. And I remember they were kind of talking about it, and John was like, I'm down, let's do it. And of course, that didn't happen. John passes away, and then all of a sudden, Cobra Kai comes out. And it's kind of cool that they were thinking about it, but a whole different group was already coming up with it as well and put it together. And now it's the number one show. I mean, Ralph just got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in the 40th year of The Karate Kid. And even taking it to Rocky territory with the Creed films. Who knew that would happen as well? So, yeah, it's a crazy resurgence and it's really cool to see. And I'm really excited that I got to be kind of, truth be told, kind of in between those when I was doing those documentaries. It was kind of the middle ground. I don't have any stake in these later projects, but it was really cool to be around all of that and watch these guys. Some of them go from just straight up obscurity almost back to the spotlight. It's pretty cool and pretty impressive.
Pretty crazy. And as a kid, I never would have imagined, that Daniel LaRusso would still be like a big deal in 20 going into 2025. But quick question: the idea they were pitching at that lunch table, is it the one where Johnny Lawrence is a doctor? Was it that idea?
I can't remember. I don't remember. I do remember this. This lady was over, like, having dinner or lunch rather, a couple tables over, and she was eavesdropping. And I remember something along the lines of, she was like, "Hey, I love that idea, by the way," or whatever it was. And I just thought that was kind of cool because it showed you, like, there was a built-in audience for what was about to happen, and it's a global takeover by this point.
Yeah. So let's hop back to your story. Take me back to your childhood and how'd you first get interested in the martial arts?
Wow. Well, it's possibly cheesy to say, but clearly the Karate Kid movies were an influence. How could they not be? But also Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Van Damme, all the movies, admittedly. But, it was pre-internet, and, the movies is how we knew about martial arts for the most part. And of course, you'd see, like, kickboxing and stuff on TV and whatnot. So I always was interested in fighting and the martial arts, deeply interested. So again, being this kid from East Texas, there was like one karate school, and that was it in my hometown, of which I never joined. I never took classes there, but I'm about 13 years old. I have this extreme interest in the martial arts. I would go to the library and check out books and just, like, kind of like Daniel LaRusso did in one of the scenes in The Karate Kid. And I would learn about the Asian martial arts, karate, jujitsu, taekwondo, just all these things that I didn't have access to. And so uh, I'm 13. I'm sitting in, I'll never forget, an earth science class in eighth grade. And I get to my desk, and there's a flyer on my desk, all on everyone's desk, for American Karate. So, what is this? And it had this really cool logo of this guy kicking really high. And I was like, I took the flyer home and I showed my parents. My dad was hesitant. He didn't want me to get my nose busted or whatever. But my mom was like, okay, I'll sign you up, and signed me up. And I've been with that affiliation since January of 1997. I was 13. A month later, I turned 14. And now I'm 41, still with that school. And it was great. It kind of just cemented and gave me a foundation of everything I had already loved for those 13 years. You know, since I could remember, I finally got to do that and been with them ever since.
Now, give a shout out to your instructor. You're still under the same instructor. Is he still with us, or?
He is. His name is Robert Lamont, and he's an East Texas guy like myself. And he is a Kyoshi, and so he's a seventh degree. And he's been teaching. He got his black belt, I believe, in 1980. No, excuse me, 1991, I believe. And he started teaching his school in 91 or 92. And he's been teaching 5 nights a week ever since the early 90s. I think he's taught perhaps in his school, it's a very large school, about 15,000 students since the early 90s. It's incredible. Now, of course, you know, that
How many of them make it a black belt, right?
yeah, he only has about 100 black belts, maybe something like that in 30 something years, 15,000 students. But he's an incredible guy. I always tell him he's my real life Mr. Miyagi. And I always joke with him that I'm now the age he was when I first started with him. So hopefully I'm still kicking, you know, like he's doing 5 nights a week, 30 something years from now.
And 100 black belts is still quite an accomplishment over a career. So I really admire guys like that. I think there should be more docs on guys like that, like the local guys that kind of, you know, impacted a community over the course of, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years sometimes, and the legacy they left behind. But I do have a question on American karate. Can you explain it to me? Because there's a few people I've met in American karate. I don't know if it's just kind of a catch-all term or if there is actual standardized American karate. Can you?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the style that I practiced since 97 is American karate. That is the style.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also kind of like you could generalize that and call it, you know, all karate in America is Americanized or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you could look at it as this general umbrella of martial arts in America, but the actual style that I practice is called American karate. We have roots in Shotokan, things like that. And then our instructor, or our main instructor that, and kind of our founder, is Mr. Bill Gray. He's the one who awarded a black belt to Mr. Lamont, my instructor. He started this school. It's called the American Society of Karate in 1970, I believe. Hope I'm correct about that. And of course, Mr. Lamont branched off and started the East Texas American Society of Karate in around 1991 or 92. So it's deeply rooted in Texas and in America, but it comes from the Asian martial arts. So it's kind of a hybrid, if you will, or a mid-ground between traditional and non-traditional. Clearly started in the 70s. It was pre-MMA, pre-93 when Gracie humbled quite a few people, and kind of changed the game, as you know a lot about with BJJ. And what's cool about it is that in American karate, it's not, you know, as Bruce Lee would say, the fixed positions, things like that. It's very flowing. We are always adapting. We do ground game. We do takedown sweeps. We do locks. We do manipulations. A lot of sparring, a lot of kata, traditional weapons, a lot of blocking. And the idea is that whereas in BJJ, you know, you would come in, you would shoot, you would take us down, double leg takedown or whatever, which is awesome, by the way. I cannot wait to start BJJ. That's my next journey, I hope. We do a lot of the sport aspect. So a lot of sparring, a lot of competition. And that translates into, you could say back in the old days, kickboxing. So Bill Wallace is clearly
like the old PKA days, that style of kind of.
Absolutely. PKA, you know, Joe Louis, that whole thing.
Let me ask you this. Is there
evolved.
in the American karate, is there a connection with June Ree and those Texas, what they call them, the Texas Kwando guys back in the 70s?
So I'm not sure of a connection there, being
Mhm.
Taekwondo, but I don't see how there couldn't be,
Yeah,
because June Ree was such a influence,
yeah.
especially in the United States. Certainly, we're more so affiliated with the Superfoot system,
Okay.
Bill Superfoot Wallace, than anything. But who knows?
Okay. Yeah, there was so much sharing of technique between all those guys at that time. It's kind of amazing. So you walk into a school, you're 13, you start your journey in American karate. Um, what comes next? Did you compete? Did you ever quit? Did you know what's the story arc of your journey in American karate?
Wow. So 13, day one, I remember going home and just going, "Yep, found it. This is it." Because I was playing sports and all that stuff, narrowed it all down to karate, to this day. So I kind of started getting out of the other kinds of team sports and baseball, things like that. And I started training, started competing. I think about a month after I started, maybe 2 months, I had my first tournament. And then we would do 4 tournaments a year in our school, unless we went to other schools and in our society of karate and would go to their tournaments and stuff. And we'd end the year every year, still do, with the best of the best tournament in the Texas State tournament in
The
Houston.
Kumite in
And the
Houston, really?
Kumite.
Where
Yeah,
at in Houston?
that's
Where
actually,
they have it?
I haven't been in a while. I can't remember,
Oh,
but
yeah.
that's actually where the American Society of Karate is located, is
Hmm.
headquartered in Houston. And of course, there's Dallas, Austin, Hill Country, East Texas. So the school is spread out all over Texas. So I was constantly competing. I mean, constantly. As a matter of fact, in high school, most of my weekends were, dedicated to whether it be a karate tournament or a karate camp or certainly karate class. And I just caught the bug. And but then you start going, okay, uh, well, yeah, we do ground game, we do those types of things, but mainly striking because it is karate, and mainly blocks. So you start going, okay, well, what do I need to add to my arsenal? So again, this is early on. The internet really wasn't that big of a thing yet. It's
Yeah.
still books and magazines and any
Magazines were
video you could get.
huge. Going,
Absolutely.
they would have instruction. You know, they had the little section where they show you the technique.
Yeah. Yeah. I was obsessed with that stuff because
Mhm.
I was just trying to gain knowledge. And then you start realizing, well, I need to add some other stuff to my arsenal because there's more out there. And I don't know, just kind of, I think that American karate is my foundation.
Mhm.
Of course, I've experimented in other arts and will always continue to do that.
And so you compete all the way through high school?
Oh yeah, through to this day, still competing.
Man.
Um,
Do you mind ask
just
how old are you?
41,
41.
41.
Okay. So you're a little bit younger than me, but yeah, so you're probably at the tail end of the of because you probably didn't see Karate Kid in theaters, did you?
No, I was only one. Well, I saw.
Karate Kid 3.
Okay, I'm glad you asked. So I was a baby when Karate Kid 1 came out, so
Mhm.
no memory. My first memory of a movie in theaters is Karate Kid 2. That was 3,
Oh, really?
and it just I was mesmerized. That was my first memory of seeing a movie in a theater.
So you compete through high school. When do you start getting into filmmaking?
Well, kind of simultaneously. So what I love about this podcast is it is, a mixture of martial arts and movies, right? So those were my two interests as a kid. So the moment I saw the Karate Kid Part 2 in theaters, I was like, what is this? Cinema, movies, but also martial arts. So I always dreamed of making movies and, of course, martial arts. So now I'm in high school, about 16 or 17 when I made my first short. And then I made another short film after that when I was 18. So I just started making short films, went to film school,
How did you make a
And
short in that time period in high school? Was it VHS or
VHS, and was it mini DV? I think.
mini? Yeah,
Um, yeah. So we had, it was called broadcast journalism, but really it was kind of like, a media class.
in high
And
school.
they in high school, and
Mhm.
they focused a lot on radio and news. Well, I go in there at like 16, and I'm like, I want to make movies. And Mr. Pitchford is his name, still a friend of mine, was my teacher. And he was like, okay, well, there's a camera, have at it. And I would just get to roam the halls making movies. And it's crazy. You cannot do this now. I would go tell the principal, I'd be like, hey, I'm going to do a fight scene in the hallway, just letting you know, because they had cameras and stuff. And he was like, all right, no problem. Or I'd say, hey, I'm going to do this action scene. I've got a fake pistol and whatnot. He's like, okay, no problem. I mean, you just can't do that
No,
now.
not at all.
And I have all this VHS footage of just doing like martial arts stuff on campus with a gun. It's crazy.
That's so wild. I did some stuff like that in high school too, but it was the days of stacking two VCRs on top of each other to edit. Did you
Yeah.
ever do that?
Yeah. Yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, I remember we had like an early digital editing system
Hmm.
plus what you're talking about with like
Yeah.
the stack. So I would take Hollywood movies, VHS tapes, Lethal Weapon, whatever, and I would re-edit them just to experiment. Well, one day I had The Last Boy Scout and the tape, and I put it in, and I was playing with different color and all sorts of effects. Little did I know, I accidentally had it broadcasting over the high school TV
Oh,
channel, and it's The Last Boy Scout,
that's
and
a
it's like
hard
F
R-rated
this, F
movie.
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my God, I almost got in big trouble for that one. But yeah,
Seems like you had a fun high school experience, man.
I did. It was different because I just had these crazy ideas for where I'm from. It didn't really fit.
Hmm.
And everyone, was more, I don't know, it was just all about baseball and football. I'm this
Hmm.
crazy karate guy with a camera. It was
Hmm.
kind of cool looking back. Yeah.
Now, when you say East Texas, is that what they call like the green curtain or the emerald curtain or something?
Yeah. More so, I hear the piney woods of East
Okay.
Texas. That's kind of what I grew up hearing because, you know, in Hollywood, when you hear Texas, as you know, it's all West Texas with a tumbleweed.
Yeah.
But I'm from East Texas. I mean, it's straight up, pine trees. It's so thick with trees and forests and woods. It's nothing like Hollywood depicts.
You haven't shot a movie there yet? It seems like a great place
Oh
to
yeah,
shoot a
yeah.
film.
I've shot a few here. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, my latest film, which has had a delay in release for a number of reasons. Speaking of Karate Kid 2, it stars Yuji Okamoto, who played Chosen in Karate Kid and 2 and also Cobra Kai. He plays our villain. We shot every bit of it in my hometown on Lake Merval in East Texas, outside of Carthage. We shot the entire movie there, and we made sure to get it all takes place in these trees I'm talking about. These beautiful, beautiful pine trees.
What's the name of the film?
It's called Bloodstreams. It's a crime thriller. Sounds like a horror movie, but it's not. And we had a bit of a delay. It had a nice little collected a little bit of dust on the shelf, but it's coming out in 2025 finally. So we're
Oh,
very excited about that.
awesome. I'll be looking for it. So you graduate high school. You decide to go to film school. Where'd you go?
Yeah, I went to Stephen F. Austin State University, where I teach now, where I'm sitting at this very moment. Full circle. I didn't. I, I'm from Carthage, Texas. Like I grew up on a lake. Like film school, California, Hollywood. It was just kind of like, well, yeah, I want to go do that. So I had my sight set on Hollywood, and then I find out there's a film school just 45 minutes away in at SFA. And the first 2 years of SFA, I didn't know about the film school here. I was in radio and television. Why would I not be, right? film school, what is that? I just want to make movies. I know that. So I wasted like 2 years. And when I found the film school at SFA, changed my life. I mean, it's a legit film school. And what's interesting about SFA, even back then, is we're one of the only, if not the only, film schools that make a feature film every year.
Oh, wow.
The whole department every year. So now at this point, I'm like 21 and I'm on a feature film as a PA and I'm learning everything I can. I'm just observing. And 2 years later, I was directing a feature film at SFA. So again, in the piney woods of East Texas.
Did you
Pretty
guys have to
incredible.
compete for the director's position? Was that kind of deal?
Absolutely. I remember I wrote a script and I was like very ambitious. I was like, I'm going to direct. Well, I got passed over the year after I was a PA, and I think I was like the AD or something. So now it's 2 years after that, first go round, and I wrote a script and I said, all right, what's going to make me stand out? So I shot a teaser based on the script, just a little trailer. And when I pitched it to the class, because the class would vote, and then the professor at that time would, he would either agree with the vote or he would just pick. But the idea was a little bit of democracy to say, all right, we want this script. I showed the teaser and gave the pitch. No one else had any visual aids. So everyone was like, okay, Derrick's gonna, yeah. And so
It's
I
good to
wrote
be
it, directed
prepared.
it. It's very good to be prepared. I even starred in it and edited it. It's a terrible movie, but so much. I made a lot of mistakes then that I didn't make, when I got to Hollywood, or at least it helped me minimize mistakes, I should say.
So you graduate, and then what?
Okay, so
Uh-oh. Here we go.
well, this is the reality check, right? And as you well know, being a filmmaker, it's literally what you just said. Now what? You're like, big time in film school, and you got a feature film under your belt. However, at this moment in time, Shreveport, Louisiana was a hotbed for filmmaking because what happened was when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, all of the New Orleans productions needed to relocate. And Louisiana started offering these incredible tax incentives. So in Shreveport, which was an hour from where I grew up in Carthage, and about an hour and a half from SFA in Nacogdoches, Texas, Hollywood showed up and was filming movies and TV shows in Shreveport. I mean, big time.
It's crazy.
So I just started while I was in film school, actually. I was an extra, I was a stand in, I was a photo double, I got an agent, I became an actor, all the while getting ready to break into the business and make my first film. So the now what actually became Shreveport. I'm going to Shreveport. Again, words you never think you'll say in your life. Like, I'm moving to Shreveport to make movies. What? And I did. And that lasted like a good decade. And then now everything, as you know, is in Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
or back to New Orleans, etc. But I ate up, Shreveport as much as I could and was on a lot of big sets, a lot of small sets, and I was able to make my feature films there. And I made 3 of them while living there.
Which ones? And are they still available?
One of them I don't claim. One of them I do claim. It's called Broken Blood.
Mhm.
And I'm really proud of that one. It was on Prime for a long time. I don't think it's available now. I'll have to check. And then one called Scrape. And these were kind of stepping stones. And I hadn't done the documentaries yet. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana, making narrative feature films. And Hollywood's calling. I'm not there yet. And so this is what I'm doing in my 20s, And but I still have my sights on Hollywood. It just didn't make sense yet to move there.
And so what'd you do in the meantime? You're still training American karate. Did you find a spot in Shreveport, or are you just in the hotel room doing your kata, or what? Like
So,
Jeff Speakman in the beginning of the Perfect Weapon, he's just doing his
right,
kata.
right. He's just doing his kind of. I was teaching private lessons, and I taught private karate lessons all through college and when I lived in Shreveport. And it was cool. Didn't have a lot of students, but again, it was one on one. It was private, and I had missed that feeling of being in the school. Uh, and Shreveport's not that far from East Texas, but it was hard to balance school, now the new independent film career, with going to karate class. But I was able to teach, and that was really helpful. Kept me, as far as teaching, it kept me kind of fluid and grounded a little bit. But I did miss training with more people and competing. And this was kind of maybe the dark era for me, being in Shreveport, trying to find my place after film school and before Hollywood, and trying to maintain karate. It was a dark time, I must admit.
Emotionally, what do you mean? Was it hard just being away, the struggle of being in your 20s, not really knowing the future? I'm saying all this because of my own personal experience.
You're hitting the nail on the head on every bit of it. My little brother had passed away when I was 24. He was 19.
Man.
So I was dealing with that. And it was like, I'm in my 20s, like what is happening? Like it was, I tell a lot of people, aspiring filmmakers and martial artists that maybe want to teach martial arts one day, it's like, your 20s, you don't know anything. You don't have it figured out. And the ones that you think do, that maybe, and good for them if they get married young and have kids young, and that's awesome. That that's great. Nobody has it figured out in their 20s. And it can be a very dark time. I feel like when I hit 30, I was like, it changed my entire life. But those were some really, like, what is all of this? Where's my
Yeah.
place?
Yeah. Yeah. That's really what I was trying to hit with Lion Killer, that feeling of like, I mean, you could even have a family, but still feel alone because you don't really know your place in the world. You haven't really found your groove. You are looking at your peers, and some now it's probably even worse for today's generation because you go on social media and everybody's lying like their life is perfect, and that would probably just send you deeper off the off the edge. But it can be a very trying time, especially for you if you're separated from that place of community, which is like your dojo, right? So you're often on your own. What's next? So then do you make the move to LA?
I do. And I want to hit
How
on
did
what
you
you just
muster
said,
the
though.
strength for that? I'm sorry, did I cut you off? Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're fine. I was just going to make a bullet point on what you said, is being away from the dojo. Yeah, that's tough because that's your community. That's it.
Your
Yeah,
rock.
that it was absolutely. So to make the move to LA. So I'm 30. I've got a few feature films under my belt, at 4 at this time that I made. And well, actually, let's back up a year. I'm 29.
4 feature films. He's got more films in the can than most people signed to a studio in LA at this time.
Well, hey, the hard work was there. Were they any good? But you could see the ambition was certainly there, and the struggle, uh, how to make this work. So now I'm 29, and this is where things get really interesting. I've put my time into Shreveport, making the films, uh, getting noticed, having a stepping stone. 29 years old, and I come across the late great John G. Avildsen, who we mentioned earlier, directed Rocky and The Karate Kid, etc. And I sent him a message on the internet. Don't think anything of it. It's half fan, half uh, business, I guess. A day later, I get an email from him, and he says, "Yo, Derrick, what can I do for you?" Just that's all it said. And
Those are words I hope to hear from some important person in Hollywood one day. Yo, Derrick, like Sylvester
Right,
Stallone or somebody, you
right.
know.
And it was kind of like, well, you can do a lot for me, actually, So like, I jumped on that. And what happened is we started up a friendship. He uh, turned me down on a couple scripts. He had made a movie in a very long time. He was very picky and whatnot. So like 6 months later, I flew out and met with him in LA. And we met for like 3.5 hours and just bonded immediately. And so when I flew back home, he had already turned me down twice at this point, uh, two of my scripts. And I came up with the idea to do a documentary on him. And he was like, all right, let's do it. So now I'm 30. I flew to LA with my buddy, Chris May. He's also my producing partner and who I taught private martial arts lessons to for several years. And we went to LA at the same time, and we just boots on the ground, just started making this documentary about John Avildsen. And that's where everything started to change. Um, I just felt reinvigorated. Like, okay, I didn't set out to do documentaries, but this guy's my filmmaking hero. He's made my two favorite films. I'm all in. And Chris and I did. We moved out there and we made John G. Avildsen King of the Underdogs, and that's where the snowball effect happened. And it was quite incredible.
Excellent film, by the way.
Thank you.
Explain the snowball effect.
So we do King of the Underdogs, and we're meeting everybody. I mean, we got Stallone on board, we got Macchio, we got everybody in this film. And one day, and I've told these stories several times, so sorry if they waver in either direction. Which is funny, by the way, because I asked John, I said, "What's it like telling the same stories over and over again?" He was like, comes with the territory. Because, he got asked everything about Rocky and Karate Kid every day of his life. So, but I'm not on that level, clearly. So,
Don't cut yourself short, man. No, come on.
well, thank you.
We're all on that road.
We're all on that road. So, Sylvester Stallone invites me to his house for me to show him the rough cut, if you will,
How does
of
that
King of the
feel? How
Underdog.
does that feel driving into Sylvester Stallone's driveway?
It was pretty wild, man. I had befriended Frank, his brother. And
Another great
Frank
doc you
was,
did, by the way. Very, very
thank
interesting.
you,
He's a character, huh?
thank you. He is a big character. Uh, I had some footage on my phone of Frank and Sly sparring on the set of Rocky. Well, during rehearsals, and John Avildsen just had his camera out. This is 1975. It's just two brothers just horsing around. Well, Sly and Frank had never seen that footage. So I said, John, can I record it on my phone and show Frank? I'm meeting Frank at a dinner with mutual friends. He said, my pleasure. I show Frank, and immediately Frank gets emotional. He's never seen this. He and I just hit it off, and he tells Sly, he's like, you remember that guy that they interviewed you for the John Avildsen doc? And I had bumped into Sly one other time since then, so I was kind of in his, he remembered me. Let me just put it that way. He goes, yeah. He goes, he's got this footage. And so Sly, through Frank, asked me to ask John Avildsen. Again, my fan brain is exploding at this point. Could I put all of this footage on a Blu-ray and give it to Sly just so he could have? John said, again, my pleasure. So Sly was like, can you put some Rocky music underneath it? Because it was silent, naturally. And I said, sure. So I did all this, gave it to Sly. He was very moved, very touched.
This
Okay.
is the first
So
meeting?
well, that's the backstory leading up to the first meeting.
Okay.
So now Sly, through Frank, invites me, Chris, my producing partner, and Frank over to Sly's house to show him King of the Underdogs. So to answer your question, what was that like driving up? Whoa, it was crazy. Like literally, we get there and Sly's waiting on us. We just shoot the shit, put the movie on, and we're drinking bourbon and we're just having a blast. We're just hanging out for hours.
Wow.
When the credits roll, Sly leans into his chair and he goes, I have an idea. And we're like, yeah. He pitched this one, 40 Years of Rocky, The Birth of a Classic, to me right there as this film's credits are rolling. And he said, put all this footage together and I'll narrate it. We got our next doc. I said, yes. What he didn't know was we were there also. Frank wanted to break the news about this one, that we were going to do a doc on him. So Frank and Chris and I didn't mention this at all. The moment Sly mentioned 40 Years of Rocky, we decided to not tell him about Stallone Frank, that is, yet. Because let him have his time. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't cross the streams.
The big guy just pitched an idea. We're going to,
Exactly. We hit it off. Since then, I've been to Sly's house 4 times. Once to interview him for Stallone Frank, that is. Once to watch the rough cut of Stallone Frank, that is, which he gave really good notes. And one time to record his narration for 40 Years of Rocky, The Birth of the Classic, in the very screening room where he pitched it to me. Derrick, you can't make this kind of stuff up. This is the stuff like that we,
dream of.
Filmmakers, movie buffs, martial artists, you name it. Like this is, and it was all happening. And it was quite incredible. So all of that was going on. And then, a couple years after that, Sly, as I mentioned earlier, is on FaceTime offering me to edit another documentary that he and his friend John Hertzfeld made called The Making of Rocky versus Drago. So I'm like, yeah, of course I will. And then I did another little project for him that, like a little personal thing. So 5 projects with Sly. And it all goes back to John Avildsen saying, yo, Derrick, what can I do for you? Incredible.
I'm speechless. That's an incredible journey for people from our generation.
Talking,
it's beyond belief.
It really, yeah. And I'm talking 90 miles an hour, obviously, because I'm passionate about this stuff. And I'm sitting in my office and, I'm like, you're helping me remember like all these wonderful things that kind of, it's fun. And you're right. The generation, like, clearly you're a little older than me just based on what you said earlier, but still like our generation, like this is the stuff that you can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you work with Sly Stallone. Did you guys ever talk martial arts, fighting, anything like that?
Yeah. Sometimes I would send him some of my videos of me training. And like if I was training for a tournament or whatever, and he would comment on it, he'd text me back like, you're going to kill him or something like that. One time I broke my foot. I couldn't walk for 3 months. Actually, while I was editing The Making of Rocky versus Drago, which was a great gig. I could just sit there and edit and not have to walk. When my foot healed up, I live on a lake, so naturally I have a lot of trees and stuff I have to deal with, brush and logs and whatnot. Now I'm able to, my leg had atrophied and now I'm walking again and I'm training again. And I cut up this dead tree and I had to toss these logs onto a fire. And it's, of course, it's good workout. Well, then it reminded me of Rocky 4 when he's tossing, I think it was logs or something when he's training in Siberia.
In the snow.
In the snow. So I'm doing that. And I mean, I'm picking up these big logs and whatnot. And I sent him that video and I was like, look familiar? And he just busted out laughing. So like we would always go back and forth with stuff like that. And, you know, and he'd be the first to tell you he's an actor. He's not a boxer. I still wouldn't want to tie up with Sylvester Stallone. He's
Yeah,
a
so is
crazy
Jackie
beast.
Chan. So is Jackie Chan. I still wouldn't, pick a fight with him.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
because with Jackie Chan, it's like, look, there's a trained fighter, sure, but he's a tough guy. Like you
Yeah.
can't break your ribs and enjoy it if you're not somewhat crazy
Yeah.
and tough, you know? So it's kind of like a wrestler, like a pro wrestler. Okay, maybe, you're uh, jujitsu, you'd submit them no problem. Doesn't mean they're not tough,
Oh,
you
even
know?
even trying to submit some people. I tell people because we have an MMA program at my school and jiu-jitsu program. Um, but you're gonna go in a cage and you're gonna fight. There's technique is great and technique is your foundation. But some guys are just built tough. So you go
Yeah.
in there and you're with a guy with less training, less technique, and you're hitting this guy. You're trying to choke this guy. You're trying to do whatever. Man, some guys are just tough, and it's this X factor some guys have. And I believe, I mean, guys like Jackie Chan, guys like Sylvester Stallone, they must be endowed with that ability of this internal grit, this internal fortitude, this indomitable spirit we talk about in martial arts, especially in Taekwondo. That's a big phrase. To go through the decades they've gone through in an industry that chews people up and spits people out, and but also just trying to get a movie off the ground is like it's you gotta be tough.
You do. And Hollywood, as you know, it's extremely tough. Um, they always would say, you have to learn how to deal with rejection. No, 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 no. You have to learn how to enjoy eating rejection for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and dessert. Like that's all Hollywood is rejection.
Yeah.
And so yeah. But yeah, those guys, there's tough and then there's trained and then there's both.
Yeah, absolutely. So so what happens after that? Does that take us to where you're at now in your journey?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So I lived in LA for several years, and so to backtrack a little bit, in my 20s, I was doing feature films and working on sets and stuff. My 30s were really focused on these documentaries, and I wanted to get back to feature films. So when COVID hit in 2020, um, I had a little bit of some life changes at that moment, and I came back to Texas during the pandemic, and kind of was like, well, I'm not going back to LA during lockdown. So I bought a lake house, and on the lake I grew up on, full circle, and now all of a sudden I'm getting more work from Hollywood, living on Lake Merval in East Texas than I had out there. But now I've got more money, more security, a home, brand new home, 10 minutes from family. And guess what else is an hour away? My karate school that because when I was in LA, I was training, like I had a membership at a UFC gym and Hollywood boxing gym. Met so many different martial artists, the big timers, small timers, and everything in between. Train, train, train. Uh, didn't compete that much, but train, 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 train. All right. Now I'm back though. And uh, I'm with my karate instructor again. And it was just magic to be back with him through this journey, college and Shreveport, then Los Angeles, and this whole thing. And so now I'm working. I'm editing for Sly and doing some other stuff. I'm back in the dojo and I'm competing and all this kind of stuff. And then I was like, I got to make another movie, like not a documentary. Because at what point do you just become like a documentarian when you're not? You're a filmmaker. Or at what point he just does Karate Kid and Rocky stuff. You do fall down a vortex of which I am totally grateful for. But there was something inside of me going, you got to break out of this. So I decided to do my next feature film, which is called Bloodstreams, that I mentioned. And we made it, and UG came and worked with us, and we were going to turn it into a trilogy. We had a lot of investors interested to expand it, and then they walked. They just backed out after about a year of me just grinding, creating with my producing partner my writing partner Frank Mangarelli. We were writing the part 2 and part 3, but we already had part 1. It was just sitting there waiting, and we were going to do this thing where we would release 1, release 2, release 3. We had this whole universe ready to go, and they backed out. Well, unfortunately, Bloodstream sat on the shelf, collected dust, and I kind of got courted by SFA to come back and teach film. Hey, man, you're just 40 minutes down the road. Come on back. I was like, well, pushing 40 at this point. They were like, just come work on the summer feature film as the paid professional, which is an honor. So basically, we do a feature film every summer, as I mentioned, and sometimes we'll ask an alumni to come back and just teach it. It's like a rite of passage or like a badge of honor. So they asked me all these years after I did a movie at SFA. And then I realized not only was this extremely amazing to teach, they were sizing me up as a teacher. And now I'm training in my dojo, just like the old days. I'm working in Hollywood without being in Hollywood and teaching filmmaking at the very university that I came up in. So, and I just got married a couple weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. To my beautiful wife, who I met 20 years ago at SFA. We didn't date. We just were acquaintances. So she came back to East Texas. I came back to East Texas. We started dating. Here we are. And I tell my students when they're like, when it comes to karate, I'm a big karate combat fan, big UFC fan. Derrick, how come you didn't compete? And I'm like, yeah, it would, gosh, it would have been awesome. I wish karate combat was around back then. Of course, UFC was around. You do the whole like, what if? Well, now I'm 41. What if? Okay, let's put that aside. Well, Derrick, what about Hollywood? You could have been Steven Spielberg, or whatever. I'm like, guys, I just want to be happy. I just want to, be married to my beautiful wife, teach film, make films, teach karate, train, compete. It's all good. And so now I'm back in East Texas, and life is great. But, it's that crazy Hollywood / martial arts journey that it's not ending. I've got new stuff that I'm adding to it. I want to start my own karate school.
Oh, do you?
So, I do. And I've talked to my instructor. He's 67, 60, something like that now. He's like, hey, I'm not going to do this forever.
Well, I'm going on 2.5, 3 years into mine, and the pain and grit you build from filmmaking will only help you start a school, because it's just as challenging. I don't know if it's as challenging as making a movie. I tell people it feels like movies, like the universe conspires against movies or something. Like every turn there's something kind of trying to destroy your movie. If any movie gets made, it's kind of a miracle. But a martial arts school in today's landscape is challenging as well. But man, I wish you all
I'm
the
definitely
luck.
going to be asking you for pointers. Don't
Yeah.
think that it ends at this interview.
All I do is think about it, like that and movies, and martial arts business, because my school's still a small school, and we're kind of making a go at it. at it as a small jiu-jitsu and MMA school, but all the while, working on my scripts, and I have a comic I wrote and all kind of creative things. But what's next for you?
Wow. Well, first of all, that I commend you on 20 years of jujitsu and 2.5 years teaching your
Thank you, sir.
school. That's amazing. And I would love to learn more about your martial arts journey through just talking to you, but also watching all of your podcast episodes, of which I've seen a few, and I love it. What's next for me? I think it's just finding the balance of teaching martial arts, teaching filmmaking, and making my movies. Uh, Making movies is already, as you point out, is tough. And, if they're not calling you, you've got to be calling them. And so you raising financing, et cetera. So it's really just kind of like maximizing the free time, if we have any, to, balance those three things, uh, filmmaking, teaching, and martial arts. But also just enjoying uh, the married life. That's I'm 41. I just got married for the first time. Look, a lot of my friends got married 10, 20 years ago. That's interesting and challenging. And, learning how to navigate, if I get a big movie or if I got to go film in LA or whatever, or hey, I've got the summer off. Now I want to make a movie, or hey, now I want to go compete or train. It's finding all of that balance, throwing it back to Karate Kid with the word balance, because that's what the whole movie is about,
Theme of
finding
the first one,
balance.
yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
always tell people that.
yeah. When people, you know, growing up, the Karate Kid, oh, that karate, they don't have. Don't watch the Karate Kid for some sort of spectacle, Bruce Lee style fighting. Don't watch the Karate Kid for Jackie Chan. Well, the original Karate Kid, obviously, because he was in the ring. I'm just talking about that style of fighting. You watch the Karate Kid for the heart of it, and for the lessons of it, and for the characters. Mr. Miyagi, the character, he's the toughest guy. He's around. He just doesn't show it, and that's what I love about those movies. And so, to sum it up, finding balance. It sounds cliche and whatnot, but it's true, and that's one thing I love about that movie.
Real brief question. I'm curious. What was it? What was it like watching Karate Kid on VHS the first time? I saw it in theaters, and I tell people out. I was in California as a teenager, so I got to see Bloodsport in theaters. I got, there's certain things to see Van Damme for the first time in like this huge screen is like this life-changing moment, right? But so was the Karate Kid, big influence on my life. I was younger at that time, but going to the theaters to see it was life-changing. What was it like watching it on DVD? I mean, I'm sorry, was it VHS? Was it just as impactful?
It First of all, I'm jealous that you got to experience all that. I think you said it. Was it in Daryl Vidal's interview that you wore out the VHS, or am I making that up?
I,
Or
I
you
think it
watched
was.
it?
I think I was given a fourth generation dub.
Okay,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
I
With
knew there
all
was a
the
story
with
there.
yeah.
Yeah. So the rental store, the video store, I would see they always had Karate Kid 1 and Karate Kid 3 at this certain video store. But I knew there was this other video store across town that had part 2. But we didn't have a membership there. We didn't rent movies from there. We rented it here. So, clearly watching it on VHS, it was different. The story, clearly seeing Karate Kid 2 on the big screen was life changing. Now you're watching everything on the small screen. But I remember getting my mother to go get a membership at that other one so that I could rent 1, 2, and 3 on VHS, or I would just circle the TV guide and wait for a month for them to come on. And I have to say, I don't. Clearly, it's a different feeling watching it on the big screen. But to be a little kid in your room, the lights are off, and you're watching this tape over and over again, and you can control it because you can rewind, you can fast forward, you can pause it. I think back on that with just nothing but love and just life changing.
Same here.
You feel like at the time you're the only person in the world that knows about this. And then you realize, no, this thing is bigger than you. It's bigger than the people that made it. It'll last forever.
Do you have always ask all guests all this question? Do you have any funny or interesting? Doesn't have to be funny or interesting story that happened on set or along your journey? You worked with college kids. There's got to be a funny story there.
You know, when it comes with college kids, like you know, I feel my age more now than ever because they keep you honest and you realize the age gap is truly there. But there's been a lot of interesting moments, for good and bad. I'll say with Bloodstreams, since that's the most recent and it's not out yet. It was really cool. We locked down a bridge, a mile-long bridge over the lake. My whole life, I grew up on that lake. I fantasized about shooting a scene there. Now I have my chance. We had a deputy on each end of the bridge who held traffic. I'm standing in the middle of the bridge with Yuji Okamoto, and I point. I said, I live over there, as you know, but right over there, you see over there, that's where I grew up. He goes, yeah. I said, little did I know that when I rented Karate Kid 2, or my parents rented it when I was 4, and I saw it in theaters at 3. When I went outside, and my dad had some windows, and I'm 4 years old, and I'm doing this, and I karate chop those windows and splice my hand open, and blood is everywhere. My dad's freaking out because I thought in Karate Kid 2, Daniel broke glass. I didn't know it was ice. Now, all these years later, I'm standing on a bridge with you, Yuji, who played Chosen. I can't help but think this is so cool. And he like got it. He was like, that is cool, and I'm happy for you. And it was just one of those moments where like none of this makes sense. And yet it's not I'll just leave it at that. It was like a cool moment, and I'll never forget it. And hopefully when you see the movie, you'll see the scene and you'll be like, dang, Derrick had that weird childhood little fandom thing come true.
And I will watch it. I'm excited. Can't wait. Keep us posted for when it comes out. Do you have any last advice doesn't have to be for filmmakers, could be for martial artists, but any last advice you want to leave us with?
For martial artists, don't stop training. Don't take a dark period. Take time off to yourself and heal and get your life in order, but never stop training. For filmmakers, the only person that's going to make your movie is you. That's it. And if you're not out there grinding to get it made, it's not going to get made. And you did Lion Killer. You're the only one that's going to get this made. So that's my advice.
Well, thank you for your time. Hopefully we can connect. We're both Texas guys.
Sounds good. And I appreciate you. And let's next time I'm in Houston or whatever, let's get together.
Yeah, we'll spar a little bit.
Let's do it.
Heck yeah.
Just don't hurt me. Just don't hurt me.
Please. All right, man. Take care.
All right, you too.
And we've come to the end of another episode. Big shout out to Derrick Wayne Johnson, repping East Texas, on this episode of FURYCAST. If you want to watch his movies or connect with him for any reason, his links are in the description. You can also connect with me and my new comic book, The Gentleman's Guild. That's right, I made a comic book with artist Ebi Canales. It's called The Gentleman's Guild. You can join the mailing list now. The links are in the description. And don't forget to watch my feature film, Lion Killer. That's right, I made a movie. It stars Regina Ting Chen, who's currently on season 4 of Stranger Things. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, Tubi TV, Freevee. There's even a full Spanish dub. And thanks again for checking out this episode of FURYCAST. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications. This is Derrick Fury. Until next time, peace.